Hello everyone. In this video I will take you through an example, should be a very simple example of how to create a JavaScript code that runs some process on an HTML form. It's very simple and I hope you will find it easy and you will enjoy it, and then you can create some more advanced applications. Now, here is the page that we will be creating. So we'll create it a very basic form where someone enter his age in years, click on calculate, and then it will calculate how many months in that 25 years, for example, how many days, how many hours, using a very simple calculations. How we create that, we'll have an index.html, an HTML file. Here it is. I'm starting from line 24 because I'm expecting you know already what should be in the upper level, in the head, and then you have document type and all the other things. I want to focus on just what's new in this, and it's not that much new in the HTML file, but we'll talk about it. And then we have another file which we will call it my javascript.js. You notice that JavaScript file should have the extension .js, and this file runs just the process or a function to convert that 25 years or whatever the user enter into months, days, and hours, and display it in the screen. This is a very simple example. Now here, first line, or not the first line, 24 in the head. This is closing the head, but there's opening the head somewhere there. We have to link the external JavaScript file. So this file is my javascript.js. You can have any name. It has to have .js extension, as we said. So this line will do that. So you start by the tag script, then you put the source, where it is coming from. Now it's coming directly from the same folder where we have our HTML file in. So we're just using straight the file name, and the file name, as you can see, is my javascript.js. And then you close the tag. One thing you need to notice here, there is nothing between opening and closing the tag, and that's how you link a external JavaScript file to your HTML or PHP or any file. So there is nothing in between, and you need to remember to close the tag here, otherwise it will not connect to the MySQL. Now, so these two files now are linked. Whatever we do here and save it, it will be reflected here. Okay? Now here we're creating the form. I'm not using a normal form, just using a simple label and input here, but we have a div just to give it some nice color and some padding and margin, which in the CSS on the top section of the page. You should be familiar with that at this level, but if you don't have any CSS there, the form will come on the screen, but will not come as nice as it looks on the screen. So we have a div here, and it's a container. I'm also linking a bootstrap there, but it can be no bootstrap. You can use just a container and give it padding and margin and color that you like. Now there's the end of that div here, and then inside the main thing is the input field. We have an input field, and it basically this input field. Now that input field need to have an ID. In JavaScript, IDs are important. You can use the name, you can use a class as a selector, but use the ID become easier to deal with the code later, because you will use a method called getElementById, which are more simpler than using the name, because the name become an array which um, starting from 0, and you need to deal with that array, which is not really a big thing, but the ID straightforward and easy to do. So in some cases you need to use the name and class. It's better to use the name and class rather than using the ID. But here we're using ID, so the ID is equal age, so we'll refer to it later. This ID which we're using here is actually this ID here. So those two are the same. It has to be the same. If we have this lowercase written here, this should be lowercase. So this has to be the same, because later when we talk about this line, it will read the data from here, from this input. And then we need to make sure we're calling the right thing. Then we have the button that the user will click on it. When the user click on calculate, it runs the process. What process it will run? On click. Here is the event we're using, on click. When the user click. In fact, there are more than on click. There is on change. If the value change here, and on change is good, you can use it on the text field. So you add it here. You see, you put on change, and then when the value here change, it will call a function, which we will talk about the function. There is on click, which we're using. On mouse over, when you move the mouse on top of this, maybe you want to change the color and make it maybe become bigger on the screen or something like that, so that you can do with using mouse over or on mouse over. And on mouse out, when you leave, what will happen? It should go back to the normal thing. And on key down, if the user, this is good in the gaming, sometimes you press on certain key on your keyboard, and you want to some process to happen, that can be. And on load, when the page is loaded. So these are different events that can be used on any component on HTML. Here we're using on click on the button, but I can use on click on anything, even on the input field or any other components that I add, an image I add to the page, I can use on click on it. Okay, or on mouse over or on mouse out. They all can be used for that purpose. Okay, now back to here. This is again the button that we click. So on click, what will happen? When we click, then it will call this function. So when the user click, it will call this function. We said equal call age. Now it's important we write the function name exactly the same thing with all the cases, because JavaScript is a case sensitive, and we have open bracket and close bracket. Here we're not passing any parameters to the function, because the function does not require any parameters. It will grab the data from the page. So that's the way we call it, call age, open bracket, close bracket. Okay? Now we need to focus more on this now. We reach to here. So the user click here, it goes to the function. Let's focus more on this function and understand it better. Okay? So this is the function in the larger scale. It is start by function. So all functions in JavaScript should start by function. It's not like Java where you decide is it public or private, and what data type it return and things like that. No, in JavaScript there is no such thing. We just start by a function, and then the function will have a name, and then the parameters you want to pass. So here we have no parameters that we're going to pass, so it stays like this. Now that's the function, which again the same thing here in the form, which come here. Now the first line, we have important method here, or line, document get element by ID. The word document refer to the whole HTML page. So the complete HTML page is a document, and from that document, which element we want to get. So we say get element by ID. So we'll be selecting elements from the page using the ID of the element. And here we using ID age. So this line basically will get the data stored in age. So whatever the user enter there, it will come here. But how to get data? You need this property value, dot value. Dot value will get you the value into that field. But there are others that we'll see later, like inner HTML, which down here. We'll come to that later. So this line, what does, as we said, it does get the value from here and put it in the page. Now here we specify the type is number, but in some cases maybe it is a text. So a good process to do is you burst it to a number. So burst int will convert whatever the value here to integer. You can use burst float as well, which convert it to float. Then you store the value in y. So this line take the data from age, which this one, convert it to integer, store it in y. And that's a very important line you will be using many times in JavaScript, because basically that's the way JavaScript capture the value of any element on your page by using its ID. So the element should have an ID, otherwise you know where you get it. ID or name or class. Yeah, but the ID, as you said, is a similar to use. Okay. Next thing, we have to convert that year, the y, which enter here, to month. And that's simple calculation. You take the y, multiply by 12. The year there are 12 months, and then store it in months. Okay. Next thing you do for the days is take the y and convert it by 3645.25, and then the hours, you take the days and convert it by 24. And this way you have your month, day, days, and hours. How many months, how many days, how many hours in that age. Now, question is, how we bring it back to the page and display it here? This is what we'll do in the next line. So if you look at this line here, again, the same one, document get element by ID. But this time, we're referring to months. Months here is just a paragraph on the page with no empty value, but we give it ID months. So we want the result to come in this paragraph, which is somewhere here. Yeah? So we're going to use document get element by ID month. Then this will display the result here. Good. So this function has a property called inner HTML. Inner HTML is writing back to the page an HTML code. And here we just writing back of how many months in that age. So inner HTML does that. So you need an equal, and then you go. Notice here the equal is here because we're setting something sending something back to the page, but the equal here is here because we're getting data. So here we're using dot value to get the value from here, but in this line we're sending back the results, so we're using inner HTML to the page. So inner HTML, what are we going to send back? We need to send back the months, but before sending the month we need to put something like months equal or months colon, thing like that. So that's what we are doing here. This months between quotation is what we're going to come here as the months. Okay. Then we're using plus. Plus in JavaScript is used when you want to concatenate two different elements like a text and text, or text and numbers, so use plus. In PHP use dot, in other languages use something else, but in JavaScript use plus, and that's plus will allow you to add the month. The month is actually this value which coming from here, so that's the month. So this is a number, this month is a number, but this one here we have is just a text will come here. Okay, so that will display the month. So the line here basically take this value and display it on that line with the word months equal or something, and it uses inner HTML. Now the next line, same thing, the days, and we're displaying the days, and it's the days here, and then hours, and this is the hours here. So that basically how we send back those data to the page. Now if the user enter any value here and hit calculate, the results will come on the screen. And basically what happened is the user, this line will get the data from this input field, do the calculations, and this line will send the month value to this page here, to this, which here, and this one will send the days to the right place, and this send the years. And that's how simple it is to connect. So you need, if you want to use external JavaScript, you still can use internal JavaScript, but the external is always good for reusing it again. So you have external one. Here we have only one function. We can have multiple functions. We just add another line after this bracket and put function something else and then do that. So you can have a library of function that you can call. So then you link it by a line similar to this. And then in your form, you create some components, can be images, input field, other things. Like if you're doing gaming later, you will have some images, you click on it and something will happen, not really actual text. And those images or components should have an ID, each one a unique ID, and then that ID can help you during the process. Now when the user click, you can use on-click event. You can have on-click on the same component, or have a special button that the user can use to click on the screen. When the user click on it, it calls the function that you have in yours, and the function usually starts by reading some data from the page based on what you clicked, and then doing some process and returning back some data to the form. Now, you see this one, inner HTML, can be a very complete HTML things you can add here. So you can, through this one, you add an image tag, you add URL, you add other things, maybe you can call also PHP file. You do so many things through this inner HTML, because inner HTML is basically allowing your JavaScript to create HTML code on the fly. So the JavaScript will be creating those as needed. So it's like writing back live to your HTML. That's how it is. Just given that we went through this example, now we understand how to do this. Let's have some general discussion on JavaScript before we do that. Now, JavaScript, why we need it? JavaScript is a client-side technology, aims to create greater interactivity in web applications. So it allows the user to interact with the web page and do other things that he or she wanted to do on the page. It is also used to perform high-level validation. You need to validate, you need to make sure the right data has been entered and the right value and things like that. Not only on on the data type. Like for example, you need an email address and the user should enter email. No, also you check inside the email what are the domains of that email. Should be coming from a certain domain, for example, or something like that. So it does more than the HTML5 validation that usually done. Also, it does a client-side calculation or process. To reduce the load on the server, some of the calculations can be done on the client side. So it does not run on the server, which if there are millions of people using the same server, that will add extra work if the server is doing the calculation. But if the JavaScript is doing the calculation, that will reduce the load on the server and allow the user to do more. And this is typically in the gaming, for example, which heavy in graphics and calculation and thing. When you start the game, it load everything, you do all the work on your client, and your application will be just sending data to the server like your score, or things like that. So it doesn't stay all the time running things on the server. It runs things on the server only when needed. JavaScript can do many things, can change HTML content, as we have seen. So in our HTML, we can use it to send data to HTML page. JavaScript can change HTML attributes. You can change a URL address of a link, or the source of an image. So another image comes on the screen. So these are attributes that you can change when you run JavaScript. JavaScript can change HTML style sheets, the CSS. You can change the color of something through JavaScript, which we will come to more examples later, and you can find it yourself how to do this. Then JavaScript can hide element and also can show element. So if you want something to be hide, you set the properties of that element to hide or show. It will hide or show as needed. So that's what JavaScript can do. The most commonly used JavaScript method is this one you need to know very well, which get element by ID. It gets you so many data from the screen using ID. Also, there is another one by names. You notice there is S at the end because the names are array, or that you can by class as well. So thank you for listening. I hope you find it useful. Please repeat the video if you need, but the important thing, practice is create the same application first and then grow it, add more inputs and add more controls. You know, the other components in JavaScript like if statement, loops, and those things are very similar to Java or C#. If you're familiar with these two languages, you will find it easy, even PHP. So I hope you find it useful. Thank you for listening.